everyone, welcome to Module 5. My name is Victory Messona and I am so glad to have you back. You're almost at the end of this induction journey. This is Module 5 and then you have Module 6 and a few other things to be done. How are you enjoying the conversation so far? Are you getting to know about light and skills? You've learned by now about our mandate, our pillars. You've learned about the life of a light bearer. You've learned about our vision, our mission, our values. You've also learned about our founding story. You've learned about why we have the community and so many other information. Along the line, you've been doing reflection tasks. You've also, completed things like your light and skills identity membership support form. You've been able to write down why you want to join the organization, what kind of a light bearer you are, and so many other interesting things that we'll be talking about throughout this journey. In today's module, we'll be learning about something so important, so interesting, and guess what? This is not something that we incorporated into the module just because we wanted to incorporate it. This is something that God taught us, and we're so happy to share with you, our intending and incoming light bearer. I'm going to be having a conversation with you around the competency framework of light and skills. It is incredibly important that we have this conversation because you're about to step into a community where it's not just you have meetings, we have conversations, we do things. It is a commitment and an investment to your journey of growth. So you must understand, how do we define competency within light and skills? You see, the word competency comes from the word competence, which speaks to capacity, ability, and it's easy to think that it's all about knowing what to do. It's not just about skills. Here we talk about the handwork, we talk about the mind work, we talk about the heart work. So you've learned by now that most of our programs and expressions spread across this area. For you to be actually competent per the light and skills standard, you must have a good balance between the handwork, the things that you do with your hand, your skill set, your expressions of impact, your organizations, your activities, the heart work, where your heart is, your spirituality, right, your mindset, and also the mind work. In today's competency framework, I will take you through 5 things that God showed us. And this is so simple, but guess what? It will transform the way you think about whatever it is that God has put in your hands. Whatever it is, whether it's a business, whether it's an organization, a community, a group, a project, it's going to transform the way you think about it. And in fact, it will help you streamline it to understand what exactly should I be focusing on. Now let's get started into what we are now calling the light and skills competency framework. So we're going to get started with the very first competency, which is clarity of vision, purpose, and work. What exactly is it that God has committed to your hand? Is it a business? In what industry? Is it a faith-based project? What is the impact? What is the thing that you have to do every day? Is it clear what giftings you have, what unique strengths you have, what you're meant to do with them? The clarity of your purpose is the first layer of competency you must have. And if you don't have it, it's something that you must begin to diagnose. God has deposited in us unique giftings. For some of us, it's our ability to communicate clearly. For others, it's your ability to sing. For others, it's your ability to communicate with children or relate with children. For others, is your empathy or great emotion for women or for domestic violence. And what is the thing that makes you tick positively or that you react to strongly when you see something not going right in that area? What are the strengths that you have naturally and the ones you've acquired over time? What is God telling you about that? What mountain of influence have you been called to man? What is the gate that God has given to you? You must identify this prayerfully. Is it in media? Is it in health? Is it in education? Is it in government? What is that thing? And when you identify the vision, you must then go on to break it into what is the mission and what is the work. So it's not enough for me to know that I've been called to healthcare. I must know, now that I know that I've been called to healthcare, what are the activities that I can now take? What is the action that I can now do repeatedly to create an impact or influence the domain that I have been called to? So the first thing you want to master is the clarity of work, clarity of vision, and clarity of purpose. The second thing, and also very important, is your revenue engine and your resource stewardship. Once you now know what you should do for work, you should start a business, you should create a startup, you should run an organization, a project, you must answer, how do I consistently, sustainably fund that vision? For some of us, we start our projects. So you have a burden for children, and then you go ahead to launch a children's teen camp once in a year. You haven't prayerfully sought the face of God to say, what is your direction and leading towards the funding of these projects? Would you be collecting membership fees? Would you be applying for grants? Would you be looking for partnerships? Is it self-funded? For some of you, your vision or work or mandate is tied to the job that you do. So the job that you do, you want to be a coach, you want to run a startup. Have you figured out the revenue engine for that program, for that project, for that initiative? Have you also figured out how to manage resources, be it people resources that also come to you, your time resources, because revenue and resource stewardship is an important part of that competency framework. And guess what? We define competency, by the way, as someone who is not just able to do these things or know these things, but is able to steward them properly such that they give God glory. You're able to steward your business, your project, that charity work, that community impact, that organization, that group. You're able to steward it so well that it gives God glory, and it actually influences and impacts the domain or the industry that you're doing it in. So take a minute to pause, ask yourself this question: am I clear on what to do? 2, do I know how to fund it? And do I even know how to manage it? You must know how to manage the money that comes in. You must know how to manage the money that goes out. You must know how to manage the people that God has placed around you, even how to find the people. So when we say resource stewardship, we're also talking about human resource management. Number 3, and this is where some of us struggle: brand visibility and influence. A city that is set on the hill cannot be hidden. Light is meant to shine. Light is not meant to be hidden. You don't light a candle rather and put it under a bushel, right? That's what the Bible says. So your brand, is it your personal brand? Whatever is the vehicle of the product, of the program, of the initiative that God has called you to, should be visible. Have you figured out your brand visibility? Have you figured out your brand influence? Is there something you can do about it? Is this an area that you're gifted, or do you have to outsource it? By the way, for some of this competency, some of them you have to master, some of them you have to strategically and prayerfully outsource, and some of them you have to combine both. For example, social media content creation isn't my strongest suit, but I know that by the grace of God, I have to steward the influence that God has given me. So what do? I partner with someone who is great at some of these things, or I go ahead to learn and do the hard work because I cannot circumvent it. In 2026 and beyond, you must understand that competency in the area of brand visibility and influence is part of the God's design for the work that He has given to you. If you have such a great project, but you're unable to reach and impact and project it, how exactly do you aim to, touch those people that God is calling you to? So you must prayerfully partner with the Holy Spirit to ensure that your brand is visible. Number 4, and this is also super interesting for me, just very closely related to managing your brand and your visibility, is your systems and your structure. This is your execution engine. You must solve for how can I sustainably and scalably do the thing that God has called me to do. So when you start out, you might start out as a solo, founder, community leader, initiator, visionary, whatever it is. But how do you start to build systems around yourself first? Your routines must become adapted to the work that God has given to you. For example, if you have a 9 to 5 and you're building a project on the side, you must dedicate time every weekend or every weekday to work on the project. You must create structures within your team. If you have a volunteer team, you must create roles, you must assign responsibilities, you must have recurring time for meetings, you must be able to use tools, AI available, and so many other things. But whatever it is, you must build systems, structures, routines that fuel your execution, so you go from idea to actually market. Do you understand this? It must be very, very repeatable processes that you can scale. And don't get me wrong, you might not get it clear from day one, but you must consistently work to building these things so that you have what we call an execution engine. And the idea that God has deposited in your mind doesn't just stay in your mind, but it comes out of your mind to a living, breathing product, program, initiative that people can relate with. So your systems and your structure. Finally, in number 5, we have one of the most important ones, which is your spiritual alignment. This is so key. It is critical to competency in the kingdom business. You cannot be out there doing the Father's business without being in intimate relationship with the Father. You must build an altar for where you know how to hear from God. Question I have for you: do you know how to consistently hear from God? Do you know how to consistently get instructions for your next level, instructions for the initiative that you're going about with? So sometimes we get a mandate and we run off to execute without building a resource bank, without building an engine, a powerhouse. And that powerhouse that will fuel whatever initiative that you're doing is your relationship with God. If you do it without God, you will struggle. You will put in a lot of effort and it might yield very little, because guess what? The builder buildeth in vain except the Lord builds the house, right? So you want to have a spiritual relationship. You want to have a very clear alignment with God, not just because you want to execute or you want to build programs or build things, but because He's your Father. And because He is more invested in the relationship with you than in sending you. Okay, heaven rejoices over one soul that is saved. Do you get? So you, that one soul, your soul is much more precious. Your intimacy with God, you must have a consistent prayer routine, a consistent Bible study routine, a consistent routine to continually hear from God, to get succor from Him, to get strength, to get nourishment. You need to continually fill yourself up so that you can deliver. Right? So spiritual alignment is so key. Once you miss spiritual alignment, everything else I've said will just be a strategy. There will be no core of it. Okay, so these 5 things are the things that you must master or outsource. Unfortunately, you cannot outsource your spiritual alignment. Of course, you can have mentors and spiritual leaders, spiritual fathers that pray for you, keep you in prayers, who you've shared your vision with, who you've shared your organizations with, that continually intercede for you. But you cannot outsource the responsibility of being in fellowship with your Father. You maybe can outsource to an extent your revenue engine, bring in very good salespeople, bring in very good people who know how to make money and manage money, but you need to learn about it, to a very good extent. You might be able to outsource your brand visibility and influence, but you still need to understand it. You cannot outsource the clarity of work. You can seek support through coaching, mentorship, groups like Light and Skills, but you cannot outsource this. At the Light and Skills community, the Lighthouse, we train our members, we teach our members, we partner with them, we together with them, because we're not the experts here, we learn together how to master these 5 frameworks, these 5 areas that make up the framework. How to master it, to own it, to build it, to deepen it, or even to know how to strategically outsource it. I hope you've learned a lot in this module. Before you move on to the next module, take some time to prayerfully reflect over this, watch it again if you need to, answer the questions very honestly, and make sure to journal as well. And I will see you hopefully at the Lighthouse. God bless you.